Okay, we're going to go ahead and start today's press conference. First of all, my name is Sharon Black, and I wear many hats. I'm with the People's Power Assembly, but also the Unemployed Workers Union and the Amazon Workers Union. First of all, I want to say that we've called this press conference today, which is the anniversary of the launch of the original Poor People's Campaign in 1968. On this very day, Coretta Scott King and also welfare mothers were really the groupings that began the caravan effort to Washington, D.C. And so we want to mark today by announcing that community, student, and union labor activists from Baltimore and Maryland are lifting up this effort and renewing that same struggle on many, many levels. First, the Welfare Rights Union that traces its lineage to the Welfare Rights Organization that originally helped to touch off that Poor People's Campaign in 1968 will hold its national conference on June 15 and 16 right here in Baltimore City. And you're going to be hearing a lot more about that. Second, those veterans of the original Poor People's Campaign, which is both Reverend Chambers and myself, along with today's youth, which Ellie will be representing, will launch a march and caravan to Washington, D.C. on June 17th. And third, we will arrive in D.C. on June 18th to participate in the Low-Wage Workers Assembly called by the National Poor People's Campaign. We would like to make sure that we clarify a number of our demands that we are committed to, that we intend to push, not just at this event, but past this event and beyond June 18th until we win them. As we have said many times in the past, this is not a moment, but a movement. So I would like to just very quickly review and read our major demands. One is to roll back food, gas, and utility prices. Food is a right. We want an increase in food stamps and lower the income criteria to include more Marylanders and seniors. Jobs or income now, which was a major demand of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. We're telling this government in Maryland to pay the unemployed workers their benefits now. Living wage and union rights for all workers. As many people know, the Starbucks workers and also the Amazon workers are all demanding their right to a union. We want a rollback in predatory rent increases. We're demanding rent control now because that is something that City Council can pass on their own immediately. Yes. We want no evictions. Stop privatization of public housing and affordable housing for all. We want to expand and protect voter rights. No to racism and sexism and bigotry, end police terror and the family. We'll talk a little bit about police terror later as the family takes the mic. Immigrant and indigenous rights and human rights for all prisoners. We want to fund education, healthcare, and housing, not war. And feed the people, not the Pentagon. We don't need $33 billion, literally, going to, pay for ammunition and military hardware in a war that we have no business being involved in.
My God.
So I want to finally say that Reverend Chambers, who's the National Coordinator of Welfare Rights Organization and the People's Power Assembly right here in Baltimore, I'm going to read off some of the people who have endorsed this effort. Reverend C.D. Witherspoon, the People's Power Assembly, Dr. Marvin Cheatham, Seniors United and the Matthew Henson Neighborhood Association, Attorney Alex Summerfield and Joyce Butler from the Unemployed Workers Union, Youth Against War and Racism, the Maryland Amazon Workers Union, and Prisoner Solidarity Committee. It's just a partial list of endorsers. And I first want to bring up to open up this press conference and this rally is Reverend Chambers, who I said before, we were both at the at the original Poor People's Campaign together. I was pregnant and you were having a baby, I recall. So.
That's history.
Okay, let's just take this off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Yes.
And we're here today to ask everyone to participate. This is the anniversary. As Sharon had said, we have marched from all over this country. I went all over the country, organizing for the Poor People's Campaign that ended in Washington, D.C. We want everybody to come out and march with us on the 17th so that we can react and let the young people see what we went through and what happened. We also will be having a conference on the 15th and the 16th of June. And we need everybody to come to the conference, and we will have the flyers to pass out. It is by no mistake that America is still in trouble.
Yes.
We can find billions, not millions, billions of dollars to send for war. And we can send billions of dollars over to oppress someone else and to kill. But we got people that died in the street right here from COVID.
Yes. Talk about
We can't get people into housing. We're privatizing all of public housing. That is a disgrace. America is still in trouble. The people here, we must stand up and rise up against oppression and all oppression in America.
Yes. Yes.
We are being oppressed, people, right here in America.
Yes.
We're the citizens that's being oppressed. When our government can find money for anything to oppress someone elsewhere and allow us to die in the street. I myself seen people being turned away from the hospitals.
Yes.
I seen people trying to get food during the whole time the COVID oppression. We gave away food. I seen people trying to get clothing. People had nowhere to go. Now, how can we, as a country, talk about helping and pulling up, and we can't even help our very own?
Come on.
We can't help our very own. I want y'all to know, and I want to say it to all the ministers that's running around
All right.
talking about we got to collect this, we got to.
Right.
You need to get the beam out your own eye.
That's right.
Walk out and see what's happening in the street to your own people. You know, God is not pleased with America.
At all.
God is not pleased with you, America.
We didn't turn away from him.
And we come and need to stand up and fight back.
Come on.
So today we're saying this press conference is being held so everybody can see that we intend to stand up and fight back. People are coming from all over the country. God bless you.
God bless
Thank you. And continue to struggle and continue to fight.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Chambers. I'd next like to call on Ian Schlakman, and he is one of the coordinators for the national conference that's being held here from Welfare Rights Union, and he's going to tell us a little bit about that conference. And stick close to this.
Good evening. How's everyone doing? Apologize, I have to read this off my phone because I want to make sure I get these details right. They're very important. Wednesday, June 15th, 11 a.m. at St. Vincent de Paul Church, right here in Baltimore, begins the National Welfare Rights 2-day conference. And it ends with a special celebration of legendary activist Marion Kramer on Thursday at June 16th at 6 p.m. We'll be honoring 55 years of welfare rights, hosted by our own Reverend Chambers. Welfare rights fought for food programs before SNAP, EBT, and even food stamps existed. They fought for programs like last year's child tax credit, wages for raising children, more support for families in need, and are still fighting for a universal basic income. These are the best fighters against poverty out there, In the 1960s, when the governor of Nevada stopped assistance checks, it was welfare rights that united all the poor and working class families to shut down the Las Vegas Strip until those checks got released. In the 1970s, Baltimore's Mayor Schaefer refused to give more food to families, so welfare rights protested by serving the mayor dog food. In the 1980s, when social services offices refused to cut checks right before Christmas, welfare rights shut them down until the checks were cut. And last year, we led a weekly food giveaway at Douglas Homes Public Housing Project when there was no one else feeding people in that area. Wednesday, June 15th, 11 a.m. at St. Vincent de Paul Church begins the National Welfare Rights Conference. Come out and hear directly from these legendary original welfare rights warriors in one final conference. All are welcome to sign up, all are welcome to attend. The conference is free of charge. Everyone coming will be fed. tinyurl.com/NWRU2022 to sign up. Thank you, and I hope to see you all there.
Thank you, Ian. The next speaker, and we have quite a few, so we're going to kind of rush this a little bit, but Eli McCrow, who is is actually heading up the student and youth effort.
Hello, everybody. My name is Eli McCrow with Youth Against War and Racism. Sorry, give me 1 second. Got to get the notes to being visible. Here, all right, there we go. So we're working with Sharon and the folks at People's Power Assembly and others to get the students across Baltimore involved with the upcoming march we have on June 17th, and basically we want the youth to realize that these issues affect us obviously, and that that our voices can fight and change these these problems if we stand up together and walk together and march together and fight and let our voices be heard. So we know that as students, food's like super expensive now because of inflation, and people who are already broke and trying to balance school and work or whatever are having an even tougher time trying to get things together and make ends meet. And jobs being tough to come by and being hard to keep and not paying a fair wage and all this stuff. This stuff all affects us, basically, students gotta, join and, get out there. So I realize that, of course, because of the time of the year that it is, we have graduations and we have, final exams and whatnot coming up. So first, I just want to say congrats and good luck, but also please join us on June 17th and June 18th. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. We definitely want those students and youth out there because it's a 41-mile march, and we're going to be hitting the streets, and though we're not expecting everybody to walk the entire distance in the march, we know that the young people have a lot more energy. So the next two people I'd like to call up together is Ms. Joyce Butler and attorney Alex Summerfield from the Unemployed Workers Union.
Young Esquire, you better go first. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for showing up. I am going to be in D.C. on June 17th on behalf of unemployed workers. Unemployment is a crisis, and we are going to be in D.C. marching, welfare rights, unemployment, and a whole gamut of rights that are absolutely constitutional. And that's what we're going to be doing on June 17th. Join us. Come join us.
Thank you, Ms. Joyce. Yeah, let's hear it. Come on. As Ms. Joyce said, I'll also be there on June 17th and June 18th with the Poor People's Campaign, the New Poor People's March. The Unemployed Workers Union, we've been fighting for the rights of unemployed workers for well over a year now, as Larry Hogan and Tiffany Robinson continue to deny Maryland workers their unemployment benefits. And the other thing I really want to talk about today is we need new pandemic aid now.
Yeah.
It has not been enough.
Right.
We need a new CARES Act, and we need it 3 months ago.
Absolutely.
Our people went through Omicron without any stimulus package, without any federal pandemic unemployment assistance, without an eviction moratorium. This is a crime. This is a crime against humanity.
That's right, it's criminal.
This is why we're marching. This is why the Unemployed Workers Union fights. We don't need $40 billion for weapons. We need $40 billion for unemployment, for health care,
Yes.
for jobs.
Yes.
And that's why the UWU fights. That's why we're all out here, and that's why we're marching and organizing on June 17th.
Thank you, Alec, and that's so true. And it literally, many of our demands are very realizable. I mean, because the government has the power to freeze and roll back prices right now, people are being gouged by profit-hungry major corporations and banks. People are not only being gouged, they basically literally can't feed their families. And we can pass rent control, we can stop that, and there's so many other things that we can literally do. So the next person I'd like to call up is Andre Powell, who's going to talk about rent control, because that's something the city council can do now. They have the power to do it. He's going to talk about his rent increase.
Good evening, sisters, brothers, and siblings. My name is Andre Powell. I'm a retired trade unionist working for the state of Maryland. One of the programs we issued was emergency money to prevent eviction. Here in the state of Maryland, evictions are at an all-time high. And following 2 years of COVID lockdown, when the landlords have not been able to raise their rents, now that the lockdown is over, landlords have been released. There are many landlords that did just the same thing that mine did. Raised my rent by $107 a month. Citing because of the COVID lockdown for rent increases, I guess they figure they have to make up for lost time. This is criminal. Here in Baltimore City, you heard a little history of the activism of welfare rights earlier. There's one other thing that we should mention that they participated in. It was getting petitions signed to bring to voter referendum the right for rent control. During that election, the voters of Baltimore City overwhelmingly approved rent control by a 2-to-1 margin. The Baltimore City, of course, appealed that to the courts, and you know how the courts are. You know who they sided with, the city and the landlord realtors, who determined that rent control could not be brought about by popular vote, that it had to be through a legislative act. So we call on the Baltimore City Council to put forward a bill for rent control. Right now, rents in Baltimore and around the country are exorbitant and way out of range. People are only one check away from being evicted here in Baltimore City. That's one of the reasons that I am going to be marching with the National Welfare Rights Organization following their conference to Washington, D.C. to join up with the Poor People's Campaign. You see, there's not much difference between poor people and working people, because as the saying goes, we're only one paycheck away from being poor. So we hope that you will all join us in marching from Baltimore to Washington, D.C. to link up with the Poor People's Campaign that Reverend William Barber has called for Washington, D.C., and link up all of the struggles of poor and working people. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. We have two last presenters. I'd like to call up Stephen Cece from the Amazon Workers Union, Maryland Amazon Workers Union.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to speak about the right for every worker to have a union. And right now, we are in a crisis situation where low wages, where bosses are speeding up, are laying off workers, and two of the biggest employers, one of the biggest employers is Amazon. And last month there was a victory in Long Island where workers there organized and had the first union victory in Amazon. Well, we're organizing here in Baltimore too, because every worker has a right. And it was because of unions that people were able to send their kids to college. People were able to afford a house. And every person, everyone that works a job has the right, should have a union. And finally, I just want to say, and I'm glad I'm speaking right before the family who's a victim of police terror, is that the police who, when workers go on strike, it is the police that protect the bosses. It's the police who make sure that the owners and bosses' interest, it's the police who break the strikes. So I'm saying this for every worker or whatever, that it's important to also stand in solidarity with those affected by police terror. We have a right to a union. Organize, organize, fight, fight, fight.
Thank you so much, Stephen. I'd like to call up Miss Kia and her sister, whose brother, and we'd like to express our condolences to the family who was killed by Baltimore City Police Department. And so we'd like to have them come up to the mic. And I want to talk about that a tiny bit, because one of our major demands around expanding and protecting voter rights, around no to racism, sexism, and bigotry, is to end police terror. And while I'm talking about it, and while I'm bringing up Miss Kia to the mic, and the family wants answers, basically, is what they're really asking for. The thing that I wanted to make sure that we mentioned before we close this press conference out is defense of Roe versus Wade, of women's reproductive rights that they're trying to strip through the Supreme Court. Because as women and gender oppressed people, we have to stand strong against this attack on our civil rights. So there'll be a lot of us that will also be marching from Baltimore to Washington, who will be out here again on Saturday, I believe it's at 12 noon, to rally, in support of Roe versus Wade, in support of those rights. I could go on and talk about those rights a lot, but I don't want to do that because we want to open up to questions and comments very quickly. So I really wanted to have Miss Kia come up here, and her sister, who's going to stand with her, and family members.
Amen. Hallelujah.
How you doing? My name is Kia Shaw. I'm the sister of Benjamin Tyson. My brother was a good person. He was a flagger. He worked every day. He had 3 children. He had 3 children, 2 daughters and 1 son. He took care of my mother. He helped me. We all did, but he did the most. He did the majority because he had more time on his hand and he could help more.
Right.
It was never a time that he was not there. We just want answers. We seen the videotape. What we seen, what the public seen, is totally different from what the mayor seen and the commissioner seen. Right. So now we want answers. We're tired of getting a runaround. Internal Affairs don't want to help me. State's Attorney's Office don't want to help me. We need help.
My God, Merle.
We deserve help. 3 months and 3 weeks after my brother's death, my mother died. So they didn't just kill my brother. They killed my mother. So now they got to deal with me. And I'm not stopping until I get justice. Keep your money. We want justice. That's what we want. If they give anybody money, give it to our children. You took their father from them prematurely.
Come on.
If they felt as though he committed a crime at the CVS, they should have locked them up and allowed the judge and jury to decide his fate. That was not up to them.
That's right.
They out here playing judge, jury, and executioner, and they're allowed to. And as long as they're allowed to do it, they're going to continue to do it. We can't say we scared. They can't keep saying they scared.
That's right. Very well spoken. Very well spoken.
Thank you so much. And again, we want to really send our condolences and wrap our arms around you in love and respect, and hope that you get justice and that people hear your pleas to get those answers that you need. We're going to close today's press conference. I know there's other people who would like to take the mic. What I'd urge you to do is come up, see Andre Powell, sign up so that the next event you'll be able to speak out, because we've usually made these events very planned. And if some of the news media want to stop and interview, individuals, please feel free to do that. But the formal part of the press conference, we're going to close it out right now. Thank you all. Thank you for coming out.
Yeah.